suspended from there for saying ass, believe it or not. And
Do you remember what the joke was?
Yes, yeah, the ass thing was a whole routine, a little routine I used to do about I got no ass. I mean, I'm just one of those guys, got no ass. When I was in the Air Force, black guys would look at me and say, "Where your ass at? Stud ain't got no ass." So I did that. That got me.
When was the last time you did that routine?
It's on one of the albums, probably then.
Okay.
All right, maybe in the FMAM era when that album came out. Probably it was.
It's not on FMAM and it's not on Class Clown Subjects.
Okay, all right.
I definitely know that.
It was of that time.
Okay.
Then the following year, I said, I said, I was in Las Vegas again. I said, I don't say I don't say Buddy Hackett says Red Fox says I don't say I'll smoke a little of it, but I won't say it. Bing. So long, George. So they did it for me. I sort of unconsciously pushed it to the point where they had to say, and it was not the only incident. There were other nightclubs where people walked out and people were enraged. One place they threatened my life, up in the Playboy Club in Wisconsin.
So where did you go to work out this
coffee houses, the Ice House, and I was able to get some concerts right away as an opening act. I did not have a record career. I was the guy they all knew from. Well, what I did was in working out the change, because when I got fired, I already had the beard, and when I got fired, I had gone from a jacket and tie to an open shirt and a vest, and it was transitional. It was a way of getting somewhere, you know, step by step. So I went on Steve Allen, Della Reese, and Virginia Graham, all of whom had a syndicated television show.
Girl Talk, Virginia Graham's Girl Talk?
Yeah. Well, no, that was a specific show, okay. Girl Talk. This was her talk show. And I just went to those places and did my newer raps for those people, talked on the panel about how I felt I was changing and this and that, and I got to be, you know, this and that. Beard got a little longer, hair got a little longer, and finally the break was complete, and I got signed by Little David Records, and I did FM and AM. Now, before that happened, I was headlining a lot of coffee houses, and I was opening for big acts, and I was sharing a few bills. So the records just confirmed all of that momentum and brought me to the next level, and there were 4 gold records in a row, and that was, I was doing it for real.
We have to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about discovering yourself more as a comedian. We're here with George Carlin. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
The other night. I'm back with George Carlin. The other night you said at the Museum of Radio and Television that you're just learning now to find out what you do, or what is it you do?
Well, I kind of have, I guess in the I do an HBO stand-up show about every 2 years, mostly even-numbered years, starting in '82. I've done one every 2 years. And I have just, I think, in the last 2 or 3 of them, begun to see that I have, see how it is I do this. I've sort of learned how to do this the way I want to do it. A lot of it earlier, although I worked at it, a lot of it was instinctive and reflexive, and I would accept a certain level of finished product and stay with it and go with it, and that'll be okay. I mean, I didn't consciously say, well, this'll do, but that's what I was doing. Now, when I take something out and say I'm going to do this next, and this will be in the next show, and I'll start writing this, and I'll start doing it and letting it change by itself, and then honing it, letting it change by itself, honing it, learning it. Now, I seem to have a great deal of method in that. There seems to be a lot of, not just the discipline, which I kind of had before, but a knowledge of the craft, of my own approach to it. And I think all along the arc of creativity, right from the things we all do, from the initial observation of a pattern you see in life or language or whatever, all the way from the observation to the finished delivery, at each step, I'm better at it simply because I think the time has elapsed. You know, I mean, I've just gotten more practice and more faith in myself. I'm a little bit better personally now, you know, weller about who I think, how I think, all that kind of stuff. I'm just maturing, seasoning, and it's all made me a better comedian, I think.
Is there a premise that you've thought of, or an idea you thought of, you said, oh yeah, this will be great, and it's you haven't done anything with it, you haven't been able to get anywhere with it? Anything frustrating little...
Yeah, no, yes and no. Here's what I found has happened, and this will be useful to you if this hasn't happened for you yet. There are things that you write them down for some reason. You know, you notice something. I write down anything that I notice that stands out because it has there's a resonance. There's something that rings in your head. You say, even if it's just a word, a single word, 5 years later, I'll find I found 8 other words like that, and I wrote them all down, and now there's a little family of them, and it's like galaxy making. There's a clumping, and suddenly this thing is worth a minute's time. But as you develop that minute, you notice there are 3 or 4 other things that could reasonably be grouped with it, and now there's like a 5-minute thing that is sort of all about one subject, and you can make the transitions between it, and it becomes a little thing that you can do. The thing I've learned is sometimes when I try something and it's not quite what I want, it doesn't fail completely, but it's not quite what I had thought or had in mind, it still got on that piece of paper originally for a reason, and I find if I relax, take it away, stop doing it, find another way to do it, find another entrance into the plays, it'll work. Because it had something to start with. I just didn't find out how to do it yet. But if I come around here, sometimes it's a character. Last night on David Letterman, I was doing these things that I was practicing yesterday about language. Fine and dandy. Say, sometimes I'm fine, not dandy. Approaching dandy, close to dandy. See, I'm doing a little guy. This guy does this material better than I would. If I said fine and dandy, I'm almost fine, I'm not quite dandy. I'm not quite dandy. A little dandy. Possibly more dandy tomorrow. And I thought, wow, see, so there was something that wasn't really going to work until I accidentally stumbled into the fact that this guy ought to be doing it instead of me.
Where do you work out this new material now? Because you're George Carlin, you play big rooms. Do you have small clubs you can go to? And
No, I can't get a feeling for it with a small audience. When you're an established celebrity comedian, there's a whole different chemistry in a small club when you come in. And you can't trust what you're hearing in the places. The audiences are too small for me to judge, because my rooms are generally 1,500 to 2,500. I put the things in the show, and I do them. I do them where they're supposed to work, in my show. And that's where I find out. I don't try things that are really problematic. I try things that I think are ready now to go, and most of the time, I'm right.
Isn't there a fear, though, that you might come into a 15-minute hunk that's not going to work, or a 5-minute
They're never that long in the beginning. They start out shorter, and generally, there's enough core that you have a great deal of faith in. You might think part of it is filler, and the core will work. And so you can risk that, because maybe 60% of it's going to work fine. You can bluff the rest. You can do it with faces and your voice. You can throw away. And because you and I, when we're up there, we die if we don't succeed, metaphorically, you fight for your life. And what you do is, every little thing that's in your head that's a weapon verbally will come out to save the moment. You know that. You get in the middle of something that's all wrong, and you'll find something to say because you have to. If you don't, well, boom. So you trust that, too. And then suddenly something that was only a saving moment becomes part of the bit because it works so fine. Then you don't have to fake the failure again to get it. You just... I don't listen to every show. I listen to... I'll walk off stage and I'll say, good opening thing, good thing on the shoes, excellent thing on Daredevils, some things in the icebox, you know, and then I'll...
So you're grading yourself.
I'm learning how to go to the tape selectively and not listen to the whole hour and a half, so I can go to the icebox and listen to the part that was new and different, and then I'll take that and save the new thing. Of course, that becomes the new reading. Those words are better than the old ones, and then the next night those things are in, and a new thing happens. And they get just added on until it's really where I can't change it anymore.
Now, you're doing this live show at Paramount, which is kind of a risky thing to do. You're doing it live on HBO. Do you enjoy that kind of juice, the fact that it's going to be a live show broadcast?
It's an extra charge. It makes the event more interesting, more attractive. You know, we're also trying to get people in the theater besides watching on HBO. It holds a lot of people. It holds 5,500. And we're almost there. We have a few hundred left with 3 days to go, so we'll be okay. But...
you're concerned about that business part, too, or the ticket selling?
I'm concerned about... I don't like an empty section. It's not good. It's not... You know, you want to have the place packed so that there's just that juice. You use the word juice, so that everybody is kind of charged. And your ego wants to feel, I sold that place out, 5,500, you know, I sold that place out. So there's an excitement about the fact that if you do really if you do something not as well as you know you can do it, you're really disappointed because it went out. When you tape 2 shows and stitch them together and make a third hybrid show and you use that, you're safer. And we'll do that for the replays, but the live night, we can't do that.
Okay, if you want to catch George Carlin live, here's where you go. He's going to be at the Paramount Theater right underneath Madison Square Garden this Saturday, 10 p.m. There's a number for Ticketmaster. If you listen to the albums or seen him on television, it's nothing like seeing him live. And you're doing the Tonight Show before Johnny retires.
I think about a week before, 7 or 8 days before he closes shop. Yeah, I'm going to go on there. I've done 135 of those shows.
Which one was your best? I think the 27th or 28th?
27 was terrific. 91. But I've forgotten some of the other. No, I have a reel of a lot of them. And I love doing that because I get to do things I don't do on stage most of the time. Sometimes I'll do a little chunk of my act. But most of the time I'm going miscellaneous, like the Letterman show. You know, you take things out. And I did things on Letterman last night that will now go into that next HBO show because I now have a little more faith in them. They worked in front of a very difficult audience.
So you're doing the opposite of what comedians my age do. You try your stuff out in television for your live show.
I did that. I did that when I was starting. I used to get on Ed Sullivan with something I had never done before because I had, you know, it was my 6th shot and I had to come up with something. So I would do something, I would learn it. I might try it one night in the club to be sure I knew it from memory. That's all you do. I do it in a setting for us to make sure I know the words. And I would go to a nightclub where maybe when I was working in and do one night, I was like, okay, I know it. I know it under pressure. Then on Sullivan, I would break it in, and that was a hard audience because those people were very exposed, you know, and people don't like that. Audiences like the dark, and that's when they come out of themselves. When they're lit well, they're a little bit reluctant to, you know, to let these emotions out that cause laughter. So they'll kind of, you know, that. And you want this. And you don't get that in that Sullivan's audience. So I would try things out there, and then if they worked fine, they would go in my act.
Okay, well, we're out of time.
I know it. And
George,
thanks so much for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I'll be back after this.